29 now. I was ski racing when I was about 9 to 20, so that was the time I was doing it. So throughout school, I was doing it as like my full-time sport. I used to go away for 3 weeks, come back for 1 week, get all my schoolwork from my local school, and then go back out. That was kind of my lifestyle throughout school, so it was very, very different. It was almost like a boarding school sort of feel, even though it wasn't a boarding school that I actually went to. But the fact that I was going away, I was kind of staying in one place, I was training a lot. It was, yeah, from a young age, it instills quite a lot of, I think, good habits and also management of your time. So when I was doing that, my kind of days were I'd get up around 6-ish, we'd have breakfast, we'd get ourselves sorted, we'd be traveling to the hill to then ski around 7, and then we'd probably be up on the slope training from about 8. So my training would be from about 8 till 11-ish. We My training would be kind of doing laps, doing runs of a course. So that might be slalom, giant slalom, super G, and downhill. So those were my disciplines that I did. And then, so throughout school doing that, I was doing that for a British club, and then got picked up for the British team when I was 12, 10 or maybe 11,
Wow.
12. Um, yeah, but that's kind of like children's team, I guess. So it's still very young years. And then as I pursued it and carried on, when I got into sixth form, so do you guys know what sixth form is?
No, no, I'm not familiar.
Okay, so sixth form is basically the last 2 years of school.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
Kind of your like final last 2 years of exams. You're going to go to university if you want to, sort of thing.
Hmm.
So sixth form, that's what it's called here, or is it like a standard of it? So I was doing sixth form at my school, but I was still ski racing a lot. So this is when kind of exams kind of bumped up. There was a lot of schoolwork that I kind of had to manage. So I was kind of balancing that throughout that 2 year period. I was still ski racing a lot, and that was kind of my start of being a professional, I guess.
Hmm.
Because from 16 or 15, 16 onwards, you're into kind of the senior ranks of alpine skiing. So you're racing everyone basically.
Yeah.
Um, and then from there, I went into full time after school. So once I finished school, I did 2 years full time. So it suddenly went to 3 weeks on, kind of 1 week off, to almost 4 to 5 weeks on, maybe 4 to 5 days off,
Hmm.
sort of vibe. So I was away for maybe 42 weeks of the year to an extent. Well,
Wow.
yeah, so it was a long time. Mental looking back, to be honest. Like, I can't believe I actually did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was quite intense, but it was wicked. And my days when I was away, as I said previously, it was kind of like 7:30 ish or 8 ish would be on the slope, 11 ish we'd be finished like training. We'd come down, have lunch. I'd do a gym session that was centered around ski racing, so strength and conditioning wise. And then used to go to the local school from 3 till 6.
Hmm.
So where we were based in Austria predominantly. So I used to do that from 3 till 6. So it was quite a condensed time. That was like my school day. And then we have dinner, and then I'd prep my skis for the next day, and then have the next day.
Wow.
So
Wow. So that's like a full time. You're going all the time, basically, around the clock.
yeah, well, yeah, you get quite used to it quite quick, and you kind of like
Yeah.
savor the last 2 hours of the day where you can we can chill out a little bit. Um, but yeah, I think that's kind of what instilled quite a big personality trait of mine of trying to manage time.
Hmm.
Um, so when I went full time ski racing, suddenly it freed up a bit more time. So I was able to train potentially twice a day if the snow conditions were good enough. So I potentially train in the morning, come back down, go back up.
Hmm.
Or it gave me a bit more time to do a longer gym session, and also time to recover a little bit more. So in terms of being an athlete, it was a bit more optimized. Um, I did it 2 years, and I was progressing. I was getting better. It wasn't like I was not going in the right direction. But after the 2 years, and I think after doing it for so long in my youth, it became a point in my life where I was like, I just need to do something different. I just need to change it
Hmm.
up a little bit. I need a bit more of a different challenge, or yeah, just lost that sort of bite for it.
Yeah.
So I did it 2 years full time, finished up, and then decided to go to university. Studied sports science at Loughborough. That was wicked. A total big switch. In the summertime, it was a bit because I finished ski racing around April, May, so I had quite a big gap until the university started. So that was quite an identity shift. It was quite weird. I didn't really like it, to be honest. You go through a bit of it's kind of like someone retiring or suddenly changing their lifestyle. It was yeah, very strange. So then in that period, I was kind of like finding what I wanted to do, but also I guess I kind of switched that competitiveness that I had in ski racing towards rugby. So I did play rugby while I was ski racing. So whenever I was home, it was kind of my switch off. I used to just play for my local club. Really enjoyed it. But suddenly, that was my main thing. I was almost the rugby player. So took that a lot more seriously. Did it for my club while I was at home in that summer. Used to push it a lot. I almost was training the same amount I was, but just suddenly just doing it towards a different sport. And then went to university. That was a big switch. Suddenly you're going out, everyone around you just getting pissed, and um, yeah. So it was a big shift, but I definitely enjoyed it. It was really good fun, and you meet some great people. And I played for the uni rugby team there, and doing sports science as well. It kind of, as you can tell, I was just always into training, so I loved the gym side of it. So quite a lot of people within ski racing didn't really enjoy that part, or they kind of just brushed over it. They loved skiing, which is totally fair. But I definitely really enjoyed just being in the gym, seeing my numbers go up, kind of having a progression there.
Mm-hmm.
So from ski racing, I was really lucky to have a strength and conditioning coach that helped me a lot from a young age, from when I was around 15. So that installed some really good habits that I'm really grateful for now. Just things like movement patterns, also a bit more nous on what works, what doesn't, like why you do certain things. Um, so being the athlete and then going into the coaching realm was quite a good fit. So when I was at uni, I wasn't sure. Well, I was kind of fixed on doing strength and conditioning. I wanted to be an S&C coach. I thought that was really cool. Really enjoyed programming, program my mates at uni. Um, it was definitely a big part of what I wanted to do. But then the idea of going in strength and conditioning is quite tough. It's really quite a market that's let's be serious, doesn't get paid that well unless you're very much at the top. To get there, it takes a while. So I had to think about whether to go down the PT route or go down the S&C route. And again, I hadn't experienced it, so I wasn't too sure. So I did a bit of work experience at uni, just training the women's rugby team with the S&C work. And then when I left uni, I decided to do a work experience at Bedford Blues Rugby. So that's like a championship side rugby team. So it's almost you have the Premiership, which is the top within the UK, and then the championships are one league down. So it's still a very good standard, but wasn't too far away. I was doing that 3 times a week, so that would be like five-ish hours, 3 times a week. But then locally was a gym called March On, so you might have heard of it. I worked for them previously,
Okay. Yeah.
so they're literally in my hometown. The guys who built up the brand itself are Ollie Martian, Charlie Martian. I played rugby with Charlie, so I knew Charlie from just being a kid and playing rugby and etc. So it was quite a nice fit. So I decided to asked to do work experience there for 2 days a week as well. So I was doing Bedford Blues 3 days, 2 days at Martian, and then 3 weeks into it, a job came up at Martian in the October. So this was June, July sort of time. So with that, they wanted me to do full time work experience there for the next 4 months in order to build up my experience, make sure I'm a good fit. Um,
Mm-hmm.
which I which I jumped on, which I thought was a really good idea. Within the S&C space, I really enjoyed it, but found that forward wasn't quite there. So with Martian, it's a very well respected brand now, and back then the coaching experience was huge. I was very much a guy who had the knowledge, but definitely struggled with communicating it.
Yeah.
So my actual speech to people and being in front of people was quite daunting for me. So that was kind of
Mhm.
one of my fears I wanted to get over. So being in kind of the baptism of fire for 4 months of just intensive coaching, eyes are on me. It's an opportunity that I want to prove myself. So it was very much a big learning curve, but I'm very grateful that I did it. It made me really, really confident with my coaching, able to portray different ideas across to clients, manage
Mhm.
groups, etc. So that was a big part of my sort of journey. So I started there in, I think it was 2019 yeah, it was 2019. So
Mhm.
2019 started in the October, and then from there, lockdown hit the March afterwards. So, kind of like a New Year's resolution, I decided that I was going to start posting on social media, just my workouts. I was training most days. I
Mhm.
really enjoyed it. I thought it was kind of like an avenue that I could utilize, and it was not that big of a deal. It was almost like I put a tripod up, film a little bit of what I'm doing, and then just
Mhm.
post a bit. And if people use it, then they use it. If they don't, they don't. That's fine. So I decided to post every single workout that I did. It started to pick up a little bit, but definitely lockdown had a big effect. Everyone's on their phones, everyone's on
Right.
socials, everything. And I started to do some body weight home workouts. So real short, like 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes sort of things. That kind of started to boom. Definitely got me a bit of traction. I carried on, stayed consistent with it. Coming out of lockdown, it definitely carried on picking up. I did have quite a big sort of scale. It kind of rapidly increased. Um, from there, I guess around the end of the year, it started to plateau off. But definitely gave me loads of opportunities within the space, gave me a bit more authority within the space. I started competing a lot more as well. So from my rugby union shift at university, from lockdown, it forced me a break from rugby, which I actually
Mhm.
quite enjoyed. Hate to say it, but I was almost like, wow, this is gives me a lot more time. I train on a Tuesday, as in rugby train, Tuesday, Thursday, and then Saturday. The whole day is kind of game. So
Mhm.
suddenly having three opportunities where I've got a bit more time, and I was really getting into my training, I kind of shifted again my sport towards CrossFit and kind of towards functional fitness.
Mhm.
So over here in the UK, there was the National Fitness Games. Have you
Okay.
heard
Yep.
of that?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So that was kind of like the new upcoming thing, kind of the biggest fitness comp you could kind of do, or kind of league within the UK, apart from CrossFit. So I started competing with that for the gym that I was working for, and loved it. Like really enjoyed it. It was wicked. Start that became I got the bug to an extent. I was training a lot. I was looking to compete, trying to compete as much as I can. I did turf games quite a few times.
So from turf games, my friend Billy, so he's also an ex-coach of Martian. He used to do CrossFit. We did a workout with toaster bar in it, and it still infuriates me today. So he, it was like a 400-meter run, and then had X amount of toaster bar, and it was just like a 5 rounds of time sort of thing. And I did the 400-meter run. I got off the runner quicker than him, straight up onto the bar, and then I just couldn't kip. Like, I had no way of kipping. Whereas he just got up onto it, floated, went straight through it, and he basically dusted me in this workout. And it was a bit. It was so. It's looking back, it's such a random thing to be like a switch, but I was so annoyed, and I was just like, and there was no kind of um how do I say it? It's no like holding back. He just beat me outright, and the reason why he beat me was because of the toast bar. And I was like, right, Billy, you got to teach me how to do those, man. I was like, I was like, this is really really annoying me. I want to get better. And he was like, yeah, cool. So he actually did a gymnastic course. So he was very very clued up, and he still is very clued up within the gymnastic space of CrossFit. And then with that, I jumped on it every Sunday. We trained together. He ran me through hollows, arches, kind of like slow ring muscle ups, or kind of low ring muscle ups anyway. Built up everything. I started getting my toes to bar. Then I started getting my muscle ups. And chest to bar and butterfly pull ups was quite a long struggle, to be honest. That sort of butterfly
Mm.
motion was
Mm.
weird for ages. But then suddenly again, I got the bug. I was very much like excited by gymnastics, enjoyed it. It was kind of the new skill. Was seeing progression week on week, and I guess that opened my eyes to getting in towards CrossFit. So I started doing not competing within CrossFit, but definitely kind of suddenly my training was CrossFit training. Zach, do you know Zach George?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, Zach
Yes.
George. So he was competing in the space. He was the fittest guy in the UK. He basically was like an ambassador for NFG, so the National Fitness Games. So with that, I saw him a few times at the NFG, and then we got in contact, and I was basically like, look, I'm looking for a coach, a kind of program to stick to, and push me within CrossFit. So he was basically my online coach for a little bit, for like maybe 4 or 5 months. And then from there, I progressed massively. Started to build on my capacity in different movements. Um, and then I started competing within CrossFit. Um, and it's all kind of a bit of a blur from there on, to be honest. But from there, I definitely became kind of like the CrossFit athlete, or I wanted to pursue that a little bit more than just functional fitness.
Right.
So
Right.
at this point, I was kind of 4 years deep at coaching at Martian, which was awesome. Really enjoying it. It was a big kind of over the years we were kind of drip fed a bit more responsibilities, which is awesome. Like gave me a bit more challenge. But I found I got to the point where my time was very very thin. Like as in I was coaching maybe 40 plus hours a week. I then the time I had when I was done coaching, I was quite pretty tired. I then wanted to train as well, so training quite hard, maybe 1 to 2 times a day was quite tough to bring that intensity. Um, and I just wanted something again similar to when I stopped skiing. I just wanted something a bit new, a bit of a different challenge, and the kind of the seed was planted in my head to start my own sort of company, start my own
Mhm.
business within the
Mhm.
space. My rationale was thinking that I'd be able to get a bit more time back, manage my time a little bit better. It will give me a bit more opportunity to kind of pursue different things. And I just wanted kind of the challenge of being my own boss and just utilizing my time the way I want to. So in well, a year and a bit now. So last October, I decided to stop coaching at Martian, and I built my business, Max Baggio Training. So it's a one-to-one online coaching business. All the programming is individualized to the person, catered towards their goals, their lifestyle, etc. It was definitely a massive shift and very scary one, to be honest. Like I was pretty afraid of like suddenly you're going from an income that was steady, to then nothing, and you're having to start kind of something brand new and you're not sure if it's going to work.
Mhm.
So I launched that in December, and luckily clients started to come in, and slowly built up to now a stage where I'm feeling good, where I'm feeling sustainable, like income wise is nice. Also, it's given me the opportunity to be in a place where I can do things like this, be on a podcast in the middle of the day. So it's definitely improved my training for one. Definitely got a better sleeping pattern. Also, yeah, time management, time to kind of utilize different things. So that has been a year and a bit now. So I've launched the one-to-one service. That was the main product. Launched a few more programs in the process. Competed quite a lot in CrossFit as well. Looking towards the CrossFit Open coming up this year, which is quite weird, quite different. We'll probably talk about that. But yeah, top 2%. Kind of like sorry, just to go back on some of my goals. For some reason, a goal of mine has always been to make semi-finals within CrossFit.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
I couldn't tell you why. It's just something I want to do. So that's been in the back of my mind for ages. So that is kind of what's driving me to carry on training the way I do. So with that coming up, I always try and push towards the open. But I think what kind of makes things work quite well is the fact that I have to do, as in I have to train in order to get better and then pursue my goal within being an athlete. And with that, it kind of works well with my business of being a representative of a brand within the fitness space. Like I'm not gonna be a person that just advocates things for people and not actually back it up with some
Mm.
actual hard work.
Mm.
So it's kind of a blessing, I think.
First of all, I want to kind of dive back into the early days with the skiing, right? So I think that was obviously a pivotal point for you in terms of your trajectory, in terms of how you got into fitness and ultimately ended up with your own, training services and whatnot. So did you, like in your early childhood, did you have any family members that were skiers, or were you kind of like the first one paving the way on that side of things?
So I have an older sister. She's
Mm,
4 years older than me. So where I live, about 15 minutes away, is like a dry slope, so
okay.
like bristles. So my sister went to like a party when she was about 7 or 8. She really enjoyed it. She was just loving it. So she started going on a weekly basis, and I was kind of sat at the bottom. And then I started getting into it again, started enjoying it. It became like my main thing. And then from there, kind of the next step almost was once you do the circuit around the UK, next step is to go on snow. So
Hmm.
do some races around Europe. So we started doing that, and then from there we went to the British Champs, and then we got picked up by the British team. And then from there it was full on like you're away for X amount of time. You're racing abroad. You're kind of within the mix.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that's the extent of
Yeah.
how it started.
Interesting. Yeah. So I mean, I feel it's pretty cool because obviously everybody has their own unique way of how they really got involved into fitness, and I've kind of seen the same thing with hockey too, in the aspect of there are guys who love hockey and there are guys who love spending time in the gym, and there's like this clear line of guys who are genuinely enjoying improvements
Yeah.
in the gym, like you said, like your numbers are going up, like all these sorts of things. So I guess you starting at such a young age on ski racing, at what point did you really see a transition of like I'm really loving the progress that I'm making in the gym, and this is a clear identity thing for me where like I'm enjoying going to the gym and even getting in maybe that second workout later in the day.
Hmm. Uh, God, I think it's been there forever, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, I think being at like primary school, the first thing I remember was I want to be the fastest. Like, I want to win the sprint race. I want to win every single running race there is at school. So this is when I'm like 6 or 7. Um, and then just sport. I just love sport. I was always drawn to it. I wasn't that like I guess outgoing or like talkative as a kid.
Mm.
So my like sort of outlet was to be physical. So I used to just run around everywhere. I was very, very active. So I think I cannot remember a time when I haven't wanted to do it. So I guess it's always been like that, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Would you say that, you talked about your first ski coach or first strength and conditioning coach when you were alpine skiing? How big a influence did he have on that? I know for me personally, I had an awesome strength and conditioning coach when I was little. He was the one that introduced it to me, and that's when I really discovered my passion for being in the gym. Would you say that he had a similar influence on you when you were younger?
Yeah, yeah, massively actually. He loved powerlifting, so he was very much a powerlifter. I remember it because he was pursuing 300 kg deadlift. Um,
Holy.
yeah, so he was like, love it. He just used to always bang on about that. So him as a coach, he was very like enthusiastic. Um, he used to train hard as well. Like he trained when I was in the gym as well. So I think he was a great role model. He was there all the time, pushing the numbers. Whenever I come in, he was a bouncy sort of guy. So I think not I wouldn't say just having an S&C coach at that age was great. I think having him specifically as an S&C coach was great.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was definitely like I remember him programming back squats, and that was the new thing. That was like I got to push these and see what I can get, and that'll be my next goal. So yeah, definitely.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Yeah, I mean, like I said too, I feel like everybody has their own kind of path, but it's also similar in a way where there's similar obstacles that come up. I mean, everybody has phases of their life, right? So for you, like ski racing was your identity at one point, and that was your primary focus, and then obviously you had a transition, into rugby and all that kind of stuff. So I guess in terms of the mental side of sports and training and all those sorts of things, what was your transition like from phase to phase in the sense of going from ski racing, you honed in on that, and then, you go to university and you start to focus more on rugby and all those sorts of things. So what was that experience like for you?
To go from skiing to rugby.
Yeah, just like sport to sport, and you're kind of transitioning focuses.
Um, it was a bit weird. I didn't really like. I think naturally you have a bit of a lull. You're a bit like
Mm,
you see everyone around you. Suddenly you're not that identity, which I think in everything you almost get a bit of like semi-depression. I wouldn't say it was that bad, but it was definitely like, what's my purpose now? What do I do? So I think having that switch was kind of comforting. That was my new thing. I wanted to make that my thing and kind of represent that. Um, so it was weird, especially in the beginning. But naturally, I just became that new person and tried to make that new thing.
mhm. Yeah. And how much do you think like the difference between ski racing and rugby? Obviously, rugby's like I don't want to say more of a physical sport, but I feel like it definitely requires different attributes of your training to focus on. So I guess in terms of you spending time in the gym, what did your training regimen really change in terms of maybe you were focused more on squats, bench, like the traditional lifts in comparison to maybe more speed work with ski racing?
Yeah, so things do correlate, but yeah, like you said, it's very, very different.
Mm,
The with ski racing is very much about lower body. So
mm,
literally squats, lunges, deadlifts. You didn't really touch curls. Like that was not a thing. You used to almost get told off if you're doing too much guns. Um, yeah, honestly. So with it, very lower body base. You almost did lower body maybe like 2, 3 times a week. You did like quite a lot of aerobic stuff. So with the nature of ski racing and training, you do like a when you're doing your run, it's very high intensity. It's almost like a sprint. It's 45 to a minute and a half, 2 minutes long ish. So it's quite a big jolt in intensity.
mm,
But then you have about 10 minutes ish off because naturally you have to go back up the lift, you go again into your next run. So in that respect, it's quite anaerobic. But in order to actually train, almost you train to train, because it's high altitude, because you want to keep that same intensity every single time, our kind of cardiovascular sessions were mostly aerobic. So it'd be quite long
mm,
bike sessions in order for us to recover sufficiently between runs, um, quite long runs as well. So it was kind of based around lower body and then also aerobic work. And then a lot of core as well. Sorry, that's quite a big aspect. So a lot of
mm,
core work in order to stay stable as well, because you're very, very dynamic. You have to be G forces, etc. Um, and it's basically a lot of eccentric loading through the legs.
mm,
So going into rugby, suddenly you're using your upper body for one, so you have to build that up. So that was quite a nice switch. I definitely enjoyed that. So my kind of switch went a bit more of a almost a bro split, push pull legs, push pull legs.
mm.
I used to follow a lot of Ross Edgley stuff. Do you know Ross Edgley?
hmm
Yeah, the guy who swam around the UK,
Yeah.
crazy. But yeah, so he was like a big role model for me when I was going into the S&C world and kind of studying at university. So I used to follow his program. So I did that, and I guess with rugby, it's suddenly you're running as well. So running was suddenly a big thing. I did do running when I was younger, so that was quite a sport I did do quite a lot of. But suddenly it's a main aspect, and you're quite doing like quite a lot of sprint work. I was a winger as well, so yeah, definitely trying to be fast was key. So yeah, I guess in general, just like a broad spectrum. Suddenly I was doing more upper body, a bit more intensity on running and kind of interval splits. But in terms of actual volume, it's pretty much the same.
Yeah, yeah. And so before we get into kind of the now and what you have going on, I did have one more question in regards to like the training aspect of those two sports. So in hockey, I'll use that as an example. Like for us, it's so hard to mimic the cardiovascular shape that you have to be in on the ice, in the off season or whatever it might be. So like training and trying to mimic that is very difficult. And I would imagine ski racing is very similar because obviously rugby, you can run, you can strength train, all those sorts of things,
Yeah.
but it's not like you can ski in the gym,
Yeah.
per se. So I guess what was that like for you? How much did your off-season training or training spent in the gym and dry land. How did that transition and kind of help you on the slopes?
Well, I guess now that I've got like experience behind my belt, I can understand the principles of what I was doing.
Mhm.
So what you do is you're definitely not training the sport. You can't be that specific. Like you said, ice hockey,
Mhm.
you can't really mimic it without doing it. So what you are training is your what the limbs are doing. So it'd be um, the eccentric load through the legs, for example, within ski racing. So it'd be being able to sustain heavy load through your legs, e.g. a squat or a lunge. So you're very much just training the functional movement, but not necessarily a whole thing in one. So it wasn't too specific. It was almost like general preparedness for the sport, and then when you got into the sport, it was just translating that strength into the right direction.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I'd say.
absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So I guess, fast forward, you get to university, you start studying, sports science. You want to get more into, the training side of things, and you feel like that might be your true passion. And then, you start your own business, your own coaching business. So when you were at university, was that a thought in mind of like eventually someday you wanted to start your own thing, or did you ultimately just want to be a trainer in some way, shape, or form?
I think I still wasn't sure at university. I think I
Mhm.
knew the stepping stones I wanted to go to. I just didn't know where they entirely led, if that makes sense. So I knew I wanted to go to in within the space of fitness or strength and conditioning. So I knew the next step was to gain experience within that space. So that's what I did. And then from there, I knew that the gym that I was going to work at, well, Martian, was doing really well. So I wanted again to be within that space to learn from those guys and be in the mix and network with those people.
Right.
And then I guess 4 years down the line, it was kind of like I want to make this my own thing. I guess that's when the seed was planted. I guess, yeah. Rather than knowing exactly what I wanted to do way back when, it was more like, I want to do this, so I'll do this. And then it was more, right, now I want to pursue this sort of area. Yeah. So always known I wanted to be within the industry of sport or fitness, just not
Yeah.
sure what the capacity was.
Yeah, and you mentioned that, a fear of yours or an obstacle you had to overcome was the communication side of things when you started working with clients and all that sort of stuff. So a lot of people I feel like would try to kind of work their way around it and not necessarily face it head on. But in your experience that you had when you first got in with Marshawn and everything like that, how did you really face that fear and how did you ultimately overcome it to ultimately have your own business today where you're communicating with people on a regular basis?
Yes, I think my attitude to it was it just really annoyed me. Like I just hated the feeling, and it was like I don't want to ever feel like this. Like the anxiety of being in front of people and just
Hmm.
getting all jittery and just not because I knew in myself that I knew what I was talking about. I just couldn't or just struggled to portray it. So it was more of like a sudden or not even a sudden, just being like I need to push through this just because for my own sanity. I just want to make sure that I'm able to do it, not make it an issue anymore. Be able to go yeah, to do anything. And that's kind of the same attitude with anything, to be honest, with what I do. If I struggle with it, if it seems to be a problem that I'm trying to push through, um, I'd much rather try and push through it rather than avoid it, because it's horrible not being able to do it, or if you avoid it, it doesn't really fix anything. Which is so much easier said than done. Like there's definitely times when I procrastinate on things, or I don't do it head on straight away. But with this, I guess from university and then going into it, I just wanted to do it. So I guess I kind of accepted I was going to be rubbish at it to start. Um, and then and then from there it was a lot easier. But it was really cool. Like when I first started at the gym, every day was like an exam. It was like, oh my God, here we go again. Like, right, I'm just gonna do this slightly better than yesterday or slightly better here. Or it'd be things like I want to coach. Basically one of the goals, so random, but was I wanted to lead the 6 a.m. class. There was like three coaches on the floor, and every day someone else would do it. It would be like, right guys, let's go, blah blah, blah. And there'll be like 24 people there, and it'd be I was like, shit, I want to be that guy at some point. So I did that, and then it was like, sweet, I can do anything. Here we go. So that's when I carried on, and it just built from there, I guess. But to say that, like, there's still times when I do struggle with it. Yeah, I think naturally everyone can't feel like they're the boss or in control all the time. It's just not the way it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it does come down to like passion too. Like if you're passionate about it and you truly love what you're doing and you want to be the best at it, like you're gonna figure out your weaknesses and you're gonna turn that into a strength. I mean, I struggled when I was growing up and I was, elementary school, middle school, high school. I hated presenting
Mm.
in class. It was always just a fear of mine. I remember in high school we had this class we had to take. It was a requirement. It was a drama class.
Right.
And I'm like, this is just not something that I need to be doing. It doesn't fit my personality. And I remember the whole school's there, small
Yeah.
school, 400 kids, but everybody's there watching. And you're in the front row. And it's just person by person. They go down the line. The next person goes, the next person goes. And I just
Oh,
remember
wow.
sitting there when I was going up next. And I was like basically blacked out. I was like, this is ridiculous. And similar to you, right? I was like, I never want to feel this way again.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's really just trial by fire. Like the more you do something, the more that you just step out of your comfort zone, and especially in the things that aren't necessarily a strength,
mm.
slowly that eventually becomes your strength if you do it long enough and you're persistent with it, as with anything, like you said.
And you almost like it after a while.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
You're almost like, oh, this is actually quite nice. I quite enjoy this. Like,
yeah.
yeah. Very much.
Absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, so transitioning into the business side of things, I feel like that's a whole different realm, right? Like obviously, you learn from somebody who's doing it themselves. Ollie Marchand and you said his brother. Is it his brother that
Yeah, Charlie Martian.
Charlie Marchand? Yeah. So you get to learn from them, and obviously that takes an observational skill, right? To really observe them on a daily basis, see what they're doing, see how things run, and then obviously you're learning the coaching aspect of things and overcoming your fears and whatnot to ultimately start your own business. So when you really got into the one-on-one training and you started your own coaching business, what was the first hurdle that you faced when you first got into it? Was it the administration side of things, or was it more so just like setting up the business to run on a daily basis and ultimately have it become something that can bring you a stable income over time?
Yeah, definitely like the administration side. Like suddenly you've got when I first started, it was like you've got email domains, you've got a website, you've got oh my God, there's like software platform, um, just kind of what your business looks like on a day to day,
Hmm.
registering your business, taxes.
Mhm.
God, man, it's long. But I think one of the things as well was at the gym at Martian. Everyone's there. Everyone's there to help. Like, as in, there's quite a big team. So you've got a content guy. You've got someone who's dealing with all that admin stuff. You've got someone who's programming. You've got someone that's coaching. You've got like a cleaner. You got everything. So with that. I guess I knew it was going to happen, but when I started doing my own thing, suddenly you're doing a number of jobs rather than one job, which is definitely something I learn, and I'm still learning it. Like I think I'm still trying to get better at it, trying to manage my time, um, try and prioritize things. So I think yeah, there's a number of I couldn't actually tell you. There's so many things that have been like propped up, and I've been like, shit, that actually takes a long time to do.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, nothing. I think it's accepting that you can't do things all in one day. I think you gotta spread things out.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and you can have an idea in place as well. It's just, and you'll be like, oh sweet, I can launch that next week, and then you're like, oh, what, I have to do this in order to do that. I have to get a content day. I have to then have the content from the person. I have to build up a little bit, build a campaign with it, email lists. Yeah, so it's quite a. But saying all this, right? It's been I've really enjoyed it. Like it's been like a good challenge. Again, something I'm not very good at that then I'm trying to get better at. Yeah, that's my style
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah, and I think there's so much more than what meets the eye in starting a business that a lot of people don't realize, and that's probably often why you see a lot of whether it's startups or people who start their own thing that don't work out, right? Because there's a lot of things that you don't realize you have to do on a daily basis, and I think there's just this ongoing, not necessarily anxiety, but like kind of looming thing hanging over your shoulder of like there's this ongoing to-do list that you have to get done and the realization that you only have 24 hours in a day, you can't do
Mm,
everything in that 24-hour span. It
yeah,
kind of gets at you sometimes, especially when that list it starts adding up, adding up, adding up, and you kind of feels like you're falling behind a little bit.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think obviously you're doing a great job so far with just looking through your social media and the loyal following that you've built, right? I mean, I think at the end of the day, when it comes down to business, it's the community that you're able to build, throughout the process is really the fruits of labor. So I guess one question I have too in regards to the training that the training programs that you've started and all those sorts of things is like where do you want to take it moving forward? Is it something that you want to keep more like personal, where it's you one on one and all those sorts of things, or are you looking to build this out, have a team, and maybe turn it into something even bigger than it is today?
I wanna see where it can go to an extent. I one to one's great, and I do enjoy it, and I feel like you get a really good relationship with your clients. And I do believe it's one of the best ways to go if you really want to hone in on your training.
Hmm.
Um, but that said, I do want to try move towards the group space, kind of like the group training space online. Build a bit more of a community, build a bit more of a presence as well within the fitness industry. And then it would just be really cool. I just think it'd be wicked, like to see. Imagine you could do like an event, like as in an in-person event, and you have maybe 60, 70 people, and they're all wearing your t-shirt. You're like,
Yeah,
"Fuck, like that's awesome. Like,
that's cool.
that's something. That's kind of something I want to pursue towards. Um, I think definitely having a community that kind of thrives itself, almost kind of builds itself, is something I'm kind of looking for. Because I do kind of back myself. I think my knowledge is very niche. I think the fact that I've come from an athletic background and now going into the coaching space and have been for the past almost 6 years now, gives me a very niche and a very knowledgeable base. I've programmed almost maybe hundreds to thousands of people, so I feel like I th- I've loved it as well. I've always been a bit of a dork with it. Throughout my teens, I've always read up on things or watched YouTube videos or so I just want it'd be cool for people to be doing my program all over the world and just get the benefits from it.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
absolutely. Yeah. So, and then I guess, as you head into the next 3 to 5 year window, like where do you see this potentially going in the short term? With what you've built so far, and even, is there something that you're looking at in that next 3 to 5 year window? Is it more going to be like an ongoing, more of like a lifetime thing for you?
I think kind of in previous things, like it's a stepping stone that I'll go to and then I'll see
Mhm.
what comes up next. But I think the next kind of stepping stone is to build that community. And I think with the more people within the community, the more space there is for growth. I think at some point it'd be great to have my own gym.
Mhm.
Um, just to have like a base. Um, And I never thought I'd actually say that, but I think it kind of annoys me that I'm training at someone else's gym. Is that weird?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So another thing that's like, oh, I just want to be able to like go whenever I want.
Mhm.
Um, that'd be quite cool to have your own space. Um, whether that's like an operating gym or whether that's just like a base for me to have and operate out of and have
Mhm.
have the team there if it ever becomes a team, that might be something it becomes. But I think having a physical space potentially, and then building a community, um, and then also just yeah, just taking it as it comes, I guess. But definitely just keep growing, trying to develop in all areas I can is the
Yeah,
main goal.
absolutely. Yeah. Dylan, you got any other questions that you want to have before we get to our final one?
No, I think that was everything, Max. I think it was great to hear your story, being able to transition sports and into the business side of things. And we always like to end our episodes with one piece of advice. So whether that's on the business side of things or for someone transitioning into a different sport or different aspect of their life, what would be one piece of advice that or multiple pieces of advice that you would give to them?
Advice. It would be like we said before, I guess any kind of problems or anxieties or things you're not sure about, I would try and just accept that you're not going to be great at it, but
Hmm.
you're going to be in a better place than you would if you didn't do anything about it. So I think no matter what it is and no matter what the stepping stone is in order to get better at it, I think just being humble enough to realize that everyone's learning, no one fully knows what they're doing, but you can accept that if you try, you're in a better place than you would be if you didn't try, and stay persistent with it. I think persistence is kind of the main, I'd say, key take home from that.
Hmm.
But also being humble to everyone starts from the same place. So being humble to the fact that you can learn something, you can get better at something, and there's no one or nothing that should hold you back from doing that.
Absolutely. I mean, Joy and I say the same things, to each other about running the business. We're not going to have all the answers. We're not going to figure everything out on the first try, and it just comes down to continually showing up, making small steps, taking steps forward, and building on that every day. So I think that's great.
Yeah. No, I think that's so true.
All right, awesome. Well, Max, thanks for joining us.